We ready to do this?
We're ready to do this, everybody. Welcome back to the Discord and Harmony podcast. How you doing today, Jason?
I am fantastic. Got a quick workout this morning and got held up by my road outside of my neighborhood being closed. Sounds like it's going to be closed for 5 days, which I guess is nice because we're going to have cleaner pipes, but it was a pain in my butt, so we're a little late shooting
getting those pipes clean, that's important.
Who knows why? I think we're connecting to Lenexa, but it is what it is. You don't care about that.
Just wait till you get to be 45 years old, and then you have to go get your pipes cleaned.
No, I'm getting my pipes cleaned next month.
Oh, hey, good for you.
But nobody needs to know about that right now.
Okay, well, we'll move on then.
What they do need to know about
yeah.
is that the sperm whale can produce the loudest sound out of any animal in the world.
Wow. Is this our animal fact of the week?
That it is.
Nice.
Would you like to know?
Yes, I want to know why. First of all, why and what does that sound? Can we hear an example of that sound?
I don't have that.
Oh.
Let me try.
We'd have to be underwater or something.
Do you need to mute the mics?
No, just...
I'll try. Ah! That's sounded much more like a bird, but the sperm whale.
Is that a macaw? Is that a... I don't know.
It's a sperm whale, dude.
Have
you ever heard?
Alligator in heat?
I've seen a sperm whale myself in Hawaii multiple times. I was super scared when I was a kid, and then I saw it as an adult right after Chelsea and I got married, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
But their noise they produce is louder than a jet engine.
Does it tell you how many decibels?
Let me look. Yep, 230.
Wow.
Yep. And so on this list, so at the top, so guess what the second loudest is? Could you imagine?
Animal-wise?
Yes.
I don't know. A cheetah.
Pistol shrimp. Dude,
you're making that up.
No, 189 decibels with the snap of their large claws together can produce 189 decibel
That's insane.
noise. Then it's blue whale. So the crazy thing, you think about how loud these sounds are, then it gets amplified through the ocean, obviously. Right. So then I don't know if that plays to the decibel level that it gets increased, but then the first six or okay, then it goes blue whale, right whale, Atlantic spotted dolphin, bottlenose dolphin, North Atlantic right whale, and then we get to a mammal.
Which is?
Could you guess?
No,
I guess you just tried.
I quit.
The greater bulldog bat.
Huh. A bat?
Which can make 140 decibel. And then we get to number 9, the old-fashioned human alarm clock.
There we go.
The rooster.
And
you were supposed to answer the question.
Oh, the rooster. Oh, I didn't realize it was a question.
So 9 is, and then an elephant seal, and it goes on and on.
And just for context for people, so the typical music you would listen to on a Sunday morning is probably 95, maybe 100. If it's over 100, people are starting to complain, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? So if you get 120 decibels, you're starting to do some damage to your ears.
Yeah, because isn't with the Chiefs Stadium, isn't that when they go to decibel levels and trying to get the highest? What's that at?
I don't remember what they had the record.
They had it's between them and Seattle.
Stupid Seattle.
We go and fight with them. It's back and forth because they have the stadium designed for decibels,
right?
Whereas ours is just
that's the difference. Whenever they were designing Arrowhead, I'm sorry, GEHA Field at Arrowhead.
We got to get sponsored by military insurance.
Whenever they were designing that, they weren't thinking, let's maximize the decibels.
Build this massive thing with concrete, and the concrete's going to hold in the sound.
Yeah.
Whereas Seattle, state-of-the-art facility.
Yeah, they got computers and stuff.
But I just got it pulled up.
Okay.
At Arrowhead, it's 137.5. That's the
impressive.
record.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So that's pretty up there. But that was nowhere close.
But think about that. That's 135, and that bat on his own gets louder than that.
Yep, all by itself.
Whoa, wow.
140.
All right, so the Chiefs, talking about sports.
We're going to talk about that.
But that's a good segue to the sports fact of the
you have one today.
of the week. Yeah, it's
awesome.
This is a really trivial thing that I saw, and I thought this is crazy. Crazy things happen in sports. So, you know who Don Mattingly is?
That I do.
One of the
Yankees dude.
One of the Yankee greats.
Went over to Miami.
Yep.
As a manager.
So Don Mattingly In 1 year, in 1987, he set the record with having 6 Grand Slams in 1 year.
All-time clutch player, man.
Yeah. Guess how many Grand Slams he had for the rest of his career? Any year before or after that?
2.
0. He had no Grand Slams, and then he hits 1987. He hits 6, and then nothing after that.
Did they win the World Series 87?
I don't remember.
Yeah, we had the Royals, and then we had the Mets.
Mets in 86.
Twins.
Yes. The Twins
won.
Twins won in 87, so.
How about that?
Yeah, that was like Kirby Puckett and I forget some of those twin guys. So anyway, all right. So that's just your random sports fact.
We're moving on. So with latest news of the week, you comfortable flying?
Yeah, why not?
Well, we had another death in the Boeing industry.
Yes, I saw that.
So not great for me.
What's going on down there in Wichita? Is your
Well, they moved out of Wichita, so maybe that's their problem.
okay.
Because growing up we had it, and then they moved everything out to Seattle. And
so Seattle's that's right.
Seattle's the headquarters now, and so maybe that's where they trying to pinch every penny, and now they apologize.
Maybe that's why Seattle Stadium's the loudest.
Maybe, who knows?
That jet engine noise.
But with all my summer travels, we're gonna have to figure out how to do our podcasts because
we can do it remotely.
Yeah, from the jungle.
That would be awesome.
That
if we can figure that
dude,
out.
I'm bringing down. I just bought equipment. We're gonna start Emissions to the Amazon podcast.
Yeah,
but I bought equipment that I'm gonna bring with me.
If we can figure that out,
we'll do it.
That'll be legit, man.
We can for sure do a Wi-Fi one.
Yeah,
that I can just do on a laptop because we have. Thank you, Elon Musk. We've got Wi-Fi Starlink down there.
Oh, nice.
So I could do that. So we'll for sure do that.
That's cool. In the middle of the jungle.
Technology, baby.
Dude, that's insane.
You got any other facts?
No, nothing's coming to mind.
I got one more.
Okay.
So the AP news cameras over Gaza. So I don't know if you heard it. Like we've been talking about the Israel thing, anti-Semitism, all this stuff. Well, a week ago, Al Jazeera, which is headquartered in Qatar, that gets a lot of the information out about what's happening in Gaza. Mm-hmm. Israel shut that thing down, said you can no longer do that here.
Yeah.
And then just yesterday, AP News cameras that were videoing what's happening in Gaza got confiscated and now fully taken over all media of everything that's going on in the Gaza
So
Strip.
You're curious what I think about that?
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I don't have a problem with that. It's a war.
Okay.
It's a war. It doesn't have to be broadcasted on TV. And if they think our enemies might be using this footage to their advantage and against us?
Okay. That's one way to look at it.
Well, the cynical part says, well, we're going to take them down because it's going to hide our own atrocities.
That's what I think.
Yeah, but the problem is, and Bill Maher, have you heard any of Bill Maher's stuff lately? Like the guy is, I mean, he's liberal and
I don't listen to him.
doesn't believe in God.
I'll be honest.
But I've seen some clips of him where he's said some pretty smart things about.
Smart, or you agree with them?
Well, both.
Okay, good.
No, but the issue is war is a terrible, terrible thing.
True.
And if we had video cameras live feeding what was going on in World War II.
Yep.
I mean, imagine if people. This June will be the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Imagine if people sitting at home were live streaming, watching what was going on as soldiers were hitting the beaches in Normandy. Like, what would have been the response? What would have been the reaction from people? You see what I'm saying?
I don't know if we agree on the same thing.
Well, what I'm saying is people would have been like, we can't do this. This is terrible, right?
Yeah.
Now, you can have that opinion, but my feeling is that war is a terrible, terrible thing, and people die in war, and it should be avoided at all costs.
Yeah.
There are times when it appears that it is necessary for the defense of your nation, and I think that biblically we see that war, there are times when war is ordained by God. He tells the Israelites, go and conquer these people, and he actually gives them an upper hand and gives them an opportunity, and he's not just a bystander watching it, he's an active participant in what's going on.
Sure.
In war. It's a terrible thing. I think it should be avoided at all costs, but sometimes it happens because somebody instigates it. In this case, the way that this ends, or would have never have started, is if Hamas had said, we're not going to go and attack Israel. But they continue to attack Israel. They continually say, our goal is to wipe Israel off the face of the earth.
Totally.
So they've put Israel pretty much in a position where they say, okay, well, I guess we have to go after you guys. And as long as you are not even playing by the rules of warfare, and you're not letting women and children and old people evacuate, that collateral damage is a little bit on your head. I'm not excusing. I'm not saying it's good for people to die, but I understand that war is a terrible thing.
Sure.
And in this case, I'm okay without there being cameras, live feeding or whatever for the news station, because probably the excuse is, or the reason, I shouldn't say excuse, the reason is, hey, our enemies are using this to their advantage. And so we don't want our enemy to get a sneak peek at what we're doing.
Okay.
You have a different take, I'm sure.
Well, I think my take ultimately lands on the idea of, what happens in the shadows then allows for a narrative to be built that is untrustworthy. That there's elements that because of World War II, because of wars that came after that, there have been international law that has been established around humanitarian policy and what does it look like? What are the terms of war? That I think right now that's part of the whole college protests, all of that is, okay, to what degree is Israel operating within that international law and humanitarian? Because, when the World Kitchen got some of its volunteers murdered or massacred or however you want to call that, that should not happen based on international law. But it did happen because it's in the midst of war. And so then if that's
but also that wasn't intentional.
I understand.
Okay.
But innocent lives are lost, which are just as innocent as those that are held captive, those that, and so for me, there's just it's a wonky dynamic when we lose something like AP reporting.
Yeah.
That makes it feel more suspicious to me.
I see. I mean
that, and I don't like that.
I mean, I get your take on that. I think it's interesting. I think Americans probably started getting, I wasn't there, but at this time, but Americans probably started getting real gun shy about what's going on in the shadows of war during and after Vietnam.
Yeah.
Because Vietnam exposed a lot of terrible, nefarious things going on in the shadows, as you said. So I think since then it's been, and then I remember the 1990, 91, whenever, Iraq, the first Iraq war, that was the first time I remember there being embedded reporters and watching on TV these reporters being there and saying, this is what I see, this is what's going on. Now, as a college person, high school, college, I was in college at that point, that was fascinating to me to be able to watch and see what was going on and getting that firsthand information. So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I think it can be helpful because to some degree, the risk that Israel is taking here, it's like police with body cameras are really there to protect them. So if someone says, hey, you did something wrong, the body camera can prove they didn't. In some way, Israel's taking the risk of someone says, well, you did this wrong. Israel doesn't have video evidence to come back on and say, well, no, look at this. If you look at this video evidence, it shows that we actually executed this in the proper way. Because it seems, I heard someone say this the other day, and I agree with this, it feels like Israel, for whatever reason, is being held to a higher standard in how they conduct warfare than anybody else, maybe even the United States.
Sure.
And so they got to tiptoe around the perception. On one hand, they're like, we don't give a crap what people think about this, but they also know that they need to give a crap.
Exactly. And that balance, whether, depending on what UN thinks or America thinks, or, you have lots of players. And so to me, that's the fog of war, if you want to call it that.
The fog of war. Yep.
The fog of war. That there is no easy statement that can be made, I don't think.
There's not. There's not.
But, for those daring reporters, like, I'm the junkie. I'm the person that wants to know these things.
Yeah,
I digest it and I pray about it. And for me, that helps curb some of the justice arm inside of me, where at least I can know for certain what's happening. And when those things go away, just it bothers me.
So it bothers you, and I'm in agreement with you on that. Like, oh man, I want to see it. I want to know what's going on. It's helpful. But again, I haven't read. Do you know if Israel said why that happened? Why their reasoning for doing it?
They said because, okay, so they specifically with Al Jazeera being ran out.
Yeah.
That is an arm of Hamas.
Okay.
Is they're drawing connections.
They're the propaganda machine.
Yeah, and we could argue whether that is true or not. That's a conversation in and of itself.
Yeah.
But then because AP gives its information out freely, Al Jazeera could then use that.
I see.
And so since that was then a correlation between, okay, that is an extension and an arm of Al Jazeera since that's there.
So the goal for Israel is saying, hey, we don't want this information to get out Al Jazeera because they are the propaganda machine, or they are in bed with Hamas, and so therefore we feel like
we have the right to turn this down.
Right. I'd like to go. I mean, obviously you brought this up, and I hadn't read about it, but I'd like to go investigate it more to see. Okay, well, what is Israel doing? Are they recording footage on their own? In their own way, or like what are they doing?
Well, to my understanding, that's part of the frustration that I'm hearing from the channels that I listen to, where everything is controlled by Israel. That no matter, the people that are in bed within it, that everybody's obviously you're in a war. And so you're being held within the confines of a military vehicle and with military members.
Right.
And then everything has to pass Israel's...
Well, they're the filter. They're the
filter.
Yeah.
And they can't go out without their approval. So nobody that goes in and videos can get anything out that is not approved by Israel. So they've just got a stranglehold on it.
And I get it from a media standpoint, from a journalist standpoint, that's probably
pretty bad.
Well, that's probably always been the tension with military and with governments when you're conducting a war.
Exactly.
So from their standpoint, I get that it's frustrating to them. I also understand Israel saying we're conducting a war. So we don't really care about you, journalists. You're secondary to what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yep.
And I guess I don't have a strong opinion. I just feel like, okay, it's war. If they want to do it, I guess I don't assume nefarious activity. I assume they're doing it for the right reasons. And if I'm proven otherwise, so be it. Later.
And I'm on the cynical side.
And you're on the cynical side.
That's why we're doing a podcast.
That's why we're doing a podcast.
All right.
Mr. Cynical and Mr. Optimistic or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, there's no optimism.
All right. So while we're battling against one another, do we want to go on the other hot topic that we were discussing? And we realized we may have 2 or 3 or maybe 4 different.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sides to this.
Yeah, because normally we've each brought in an article, but we've had something happen locally here.
It's a combined article. It's local, but it's gotten a lot of national attention.
Oh, it did it ever. And it's been hijacked to the nth degree. And so I guess if anybody wants to know, Jason and Claire are going to give our takes on the Harrison Butker controversy.
Butkergate or
whatever you want to call it. All right. So do you want to lay out your thesis or your argument for, I guess, what you think about it?
Yeah, sure. I don't
know a better way. I don't know if you brought an article to read from or...
No, I didn't bring an article to read from because what I did is I've listened to the entire...
so you're going to bring the actual
I listened
speech.
To the actual speech.
Which I did also, but that's your submission. My submission that I'm going to bring is the response by the Benedictine nuns.
Okay, that's fine.
To his...
That's fine.
Commencement.
Because I'm a little interested
in.
So Harrison Butker, for those of you that have been living under a rock, gave the convention speech to St. Benedictine, which is a pretty conservative Catholic college.
I played against in tennis.
We went
here out there to Atchison, Kansas.
Yeah, in the Kansas City area. He gave the commencement speech, and in the speech, he said some things that I think, from when I listened to it, I didn't have any problems with it because I felt like, well, he knows his audience. This is a conservative Catholic audience. He's a pretty conservative Catholic man. They invited him to come speak. The audience all responded well. They laughed with him. They applauded with him. They gave him a standing ovation at the end. What I've noticed, though, is all this criticism coming from the outside. Most of that criticism, for what I've seen, has been directed at the comments he made to the ladies in the audience about their future vocation and motherhood and things like that. So to that, I have a couple of things. I say, one, people that are criticizing it on the outside, you weren't invited. You weren't there. You're not a part of the audience.
Okay.
So it wasn't for you.
Sure.
It was for this particular audience.
Sure.
I did a wedding this last weekend.
First ever?
I officiated my first wedding.
So you're an ordained?
Yeah, I'm ordained.
Priest. That is a.
I'm not a priest.
Okay.
You just call me a priest.
No. Well, you're at least ordained enough to make something official. That's cool.
Yeah. So but some friends of ours. Well, the charge I gave to the couple, that was for the people there.
Okay.
If someone,
do you have something controversial? If
well, maybe.
Maybe.
I mean, I read from Ecclesiastes, so I'm sure that there are people out there that would say, no. That's a bunch of baloney.
We got to get some background tape on this.
Right. My point is, people on the outside, it's like this wasn't even for you.
Sure.
So I don't see I just don't see the controversy in it. If he had gone in there and he had said espoused all these liberal things to that group, like, hey, everyone here, you need to affirm, the LGBT lifestyle, and you need to, and you need to just be free with sex outside of marriage or something like things that went against conservative Catholic doctrine. That would have been the controversy, right?
Okay,
because then people would have been like, whoa, what's this guy doing? So people on the outside throwing stones, and their biggest thing was, I heard the word discriminatory or discrimination used about the LGBTQ thing, which that is not what discrimination is. You can say an opinion on, I think something is wrong. That's not being discrimination. Discrimination is if you're a manager of a company and you don't give somebody a raise because they're gay.
Yes.
That's discrimination.
Yes.
Two different things. And then the other piece, though, was really what people focus in on. Harrison Bucker said, hey, there's a lot of you here, ladies, that you've got degree and you're going to go on and you're going to be professionals and you're going to succeed in professional life. And he wasn't saying that was wrong.
Would you like me to read the actual quote?
Yeah, sure.
Would that be helpful?
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Okay, I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. Which that, I think, is what makes it controversial.
Okay.
That he just starts with that.
Okay.
I don't think he's a well-versed speaker. Now you're getting some of my flavor. But,
That's
okay,
fine.
How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross the stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you're going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that. So, one, I agree. For a large part over the last generation or so, a lot of young ladies have been told a lie that if you choose to just stay at home, be a homemaker, raise the kids at home, be a mom, be a wife, manage the homestead, and you don't go out and get a job outside the home, you are less than, and you're not really fulfilling your calling.
Okay.
That is the lie that I think young women have been told. They're less than if they choose, and I completely disagree with that. Now, I don't have a problem with women going and working outside the home. My wife does. She has a really good career. She's a nurse. She's a manager at a place. Like she has a good career. But there was a period of time when our kids were little, she stayed at home. She didn't work outside the home. So I don't see anything controversial in him saying, yes, you've been told a lie that the most important thing for you, or you don't matter, or you don't have any self-worth, or you don't have value to the world if you don't go get a job and chase a career.
Sure.
It's okay, because a lot of those girls in that audience are girls. Young women in that audience are thinking about, they would like to get married. They like to have children. They're Catholics. They have 20 children in their family. And then he went on and he talked about his wife, how his wife made that choice.
Sure.
And it was a really nice story about how it was so a blessing to her and to their family. And he got choked up talking about his wife. And the crowd gave him rounding applause for that. So I don't see, I guess I just struggle seeing what is the controversy in that, unless you think women ought to go and work outside the home.
All right. So I got a lot.
Okay.
I got a lot to that.
I mean, I have other points, but I want to stop there. I'm going to stop there and let you.
And I'll respond just directly to that last point you made, because, and I stopped reading But ultimately, when he then went to his wife and started talking about his wife, he literally said, "My wife's life truly began when she became a wife and mother." To me, as a young woman, obviously, maybe we should put that caveat in here. We are not women. We are not speaking on behalf of women. We are doing our best to I've talked to Chelsea. You've talked.
I've talked to my wife about it. Yeah,
and
she's talked with several of her Catholic friends at her work.
Which then that's where I'm going to go after this. But for the young women, that okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to wait for my life to truly begin until I find a husband and father. I just don't think he articulated himself well.
Yeah, he probably didn't there. And now, as far as we know, maybe his wife has made that comment. Oh, my life didn't really truly begin.
Sure, but telling that to a group of young women,
yes,
that probably most of them are not married yet,
yes,
and maybe aren't even dating somebody or thinking about marriage yet. I think that is a poor way to phrase that comment.
I agree. Controversial? No. Not phrased really well and could be misconstrued? Sure.
And easily hijackable? Yes.
Easily hijackable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's my first beef.
Okay.
Where it's just so let me go into that. So like with that being said, why is Harrison Butker, a 28-year-old man, being asked to come and give a message to 22-year-olds? Like, what life has he lived? He's lived 6 years. Why is this guy being invited? That's my first beef. Because if he wasn't on the World Championship, Kansas City Chiefs, would he ever be invited to come and speak at this place?
Wait, how many times champions the Kansas City Chiefs?
How many times was he on it? He wasn't. He was only on 2 of them. But within that,
I guess that's true. He gets 2.
But within that, the thought process, that's where I instantly want to go. At least from my mind, that where I first go is, why is this the man you chose to speak to your children?
Okay.
So
I mean, I don't know. I can't answer that for I can't remember the guy's name, but the president of the college. Maybe my guess is they know. Oh, here's a Buckner. He's a well-known commodity in our area, and he's a Catholic and he's conservative, and he espouses the kind of beliefs and theology that fits well with us. So that'll be nice to have him here.
Okay.
That's my guess. I mean, obviously, I didn't ask. I haven't asked them. But your point seems to be, what gives him any more credibility than somebody older than him, or like what are you comparing it against? Or someone less famous?
So that's just, for me, that's when it comes to, okay, who am I going to respect and who am I going to listen to as a personal? That's how I process a lot of my information. That's how I choose the podcasts I listen to. It's but within that, that's where I start. It's this, okay, I'm putting myself in that room as a 22-year-old graduate, and a 28-year-old walks up, and I guess he has wisdom because he was an athlete and he's Catholic. So I'm going to now be subjected to his thoughts to me. Now, what I was confused about is, okay, so he gets this privilege, and so I would extend it beyond just the fact that he's on the World Championship. It's everything that's happened in this last year.
Okay. With
the Taylor Swift thing, with her dating, like now you have this world. I think that's how this became such a big deal, is that you have so many more people watching.
They're focusing on the Chiefs. They're watching the Chiefs.
Everything, every move.
Yeah.
Hey, did you know Brittany Mahomes was on Sports Illustrated?
Well, because I heard, I can't confirm this because I just heard this. I think my son told me, I could be wrong, that Butker gave a commencement speech last year someplace that was pretty similar, and nobody said boo.
Yep. But now it gets traffic. And so to me, that's what the administrators need to be thinking about. What are you bringing in? And so as I put it through my filter, and I'm listening and I watch the whole commencement speech, when I'm watching and listening to this, it is very much, this had a target. He had a point he wanted to make.
Sure.
And so to that point, then that's what leads to all the controversy, because
sure,
you have a celebrity giving a commencement speech to a small NAIA school and a group of people for what? Like, what is the goal of this?
But if the president of the college and the people making the choice of who are we going to invite to come be our commencement speaker, and they weigh all that and they say, this is the guy that we want to have come, maybe he wouldn't be your first pick, but is that a controversy for them to do that? Or
I just think it shows their colors. It shows who they are. Like, because to me,
they're a conservative Catholic school. So they're bringing a guy who's going to espouse...
But he did not espouse. So that's my next point. He did not espouse conservative Catholic beliefs. Because at the core, what he is pushing is a very Protestant view.
Okay.
That the idea of, this dynamic around, okay, the best part of your life is going to be as mothers and wives, and, that could be the greatest thing you could achieve in your life or whatever. That isn't a solely Catholic belief.
Yeah.
Like, the true Catholic belief system is, the vow of abstinence, and you have, nuns that dedicate their lives,
right.
Which is actually the story of St. Benedictine. The school itself was founded by nuns.
Right.
And so that's a different idea than being a wife and a mother.
Okay. I don't mind talking about that, but because that's an interesting point. But I think, for me, one of the things that I've told myself watching this is, well, I'm not a Catholic, so I'm not the target audience. Because he did say some things in there about the Catholic Church. He was pretty heavy critical of some priests and bishops, right? And he started talking about something at the end where he's involved in. I'm like, I don't even know what this thing is, right? Yep. It's like, but I'm like, well, I'm not Catholic. I don't know. So that's not me.
Okay.
And my final interesting. And again, my wife has several Catholic ladies that she works with, so she's kind of asked them, and there is some within the Catholic circle. There's some controversy.
Yes,
but that is not what's getting the national news.
No, it's not.
Right?
So I guess I'm sidestepping this conversation.
Well, I think there's two things. There's the national conversation about, well, Harrison Butker could go kick his own ass because, he's discriminating against LGBTQ people and he wants women to stay at home in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant kind of thing. Like, that is what the national... And I'm like, that's baloney. That's not a controversy.
No.
That's just people making stuff up.
Well,
now, on the sidelines, maybe there'd be something here within the Catholic Church that is interesting, but it's kind of more contained in what's going on in their world. That's not going to be on the front page of Sports Illustrated or ESPN or whatever.
So then
people aren't going to call for the NFL or for the Chiefs to kick him off the team because his Catholic theology doesn't line up with the nuns.
Yes. So then, okay, so disclaimer, Jason's belief, Harrison Butker is allowed his opinion. His opinion is not mine. I will say that first and foremost. I don't really care what Harrison Butker has to say about anything. He's not somebody that I care to know about. But
if you had an opportunity to sit down for dinner with Harrison Butker, would you do it?
I'd pass.
Really? Why not? Yeah,
because for me, he's just not interesting to me.
Okay.
So... maybe
I'm not a celebrity worshiper kind of person.
Yes.
Never have been, never will be. But there are people out there like, well, it'd be interesting to sit down and have a conversation with them.
Now let me say that differently.
Cup of coffee or something.
Now, if Harrison Butker hears this and says, Jason, I want to talk to you, I would love that. Okay. Like if it's hey, we're gonna get to meet and we're gonna get to discuss, then yes, I'm game.
Okay.
But when you asked that, it was more of
I don't mean like I'm just going to get an autograph from the guy.
Yeah.
And say, oh, you're awesome. That's not
my cup of tea.
But to sit down with people.
If I could have a real human-to-human conversation, absolutely. Right. I'm always game for that.
Right. Imagine if you had an opportunity just to sit down with Donald Trump.
Sure.
Over coffee, right?
Yeah.
Or Barack Obama or Bill Clinton.
There really is not anybody that I would refuse to sit down and talk to.
Right.
That
because remember that time when you went and sat down with Kim Jong-un?
Call back. But to the degree that
Jason's running for governor of South Dakota.
Well, and you know this about me. I am very comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I don't mind putting myself in uncomfortable situations that make other people uncomfortable for the goal of either finding understanding or better. Maybe helping promote some. Anyways.
Right. Well, so you, because like I said, the Catholic part of this, I fully recognize it exists. And there's things he said, I'm like, I don't even understand. And he even made a little jab at birth control and, things like that. All right, fine. Again, I'm not part of the audience, so I just excuse myself from that.
Sure.
But I'm curious because apparently you've read a little bit about something about some of the, but I just want us to parse those two things out. The national controversy is kind of baloney because I don't
Yes.
think that he's really going after women saying you need to be barefoot in the kitchen. That's really your calling in life. But there are some things maybe he rubbed up against the Catholic Church that will be interesting to know about.
And so it's that, and then I guess the disheartening thing for me is the way in which the national media and people may or may not have listened to the whole thing. But
Well, sure.
but
That's a problem too. Is people
exactly.
just make
So
stuff
I'm
up.
gonna bring those two things together.
Okay.
Because the disheartening thing for me was not a well-developed narrative of, well, actually, like, the responses were just, okay, let's get upset about things.
Yeah.
So you have people on both sides. You have Fox News flying in Hunt's daughter to go and play pickleball on their little thing with Tim Tebow's wife to be able to assert the white, her mom's values and how wonderful
Who won
her
that
mom
pickleball
was.
match, by the way?
What?
Who won that pickleball match?
Will Kane did. Will Kane was who was playing against them.
Oh.
So it's just baloney. And I've actually gotten into it with Tavia Hunt a couple times on Instagram, but
Nice.
we won't go into that today.
Okay.
Her and I's views do not match, but maybe we'll get to that at the end of this conversation.
Well, she has more money, so she can.
She can say whatever she wants, I guess, and hide behind her palatial estate in
Hey,
Dallas.
but you now have internet in the jungle, so
Yeah. What she got on me?
yeah.
But
You
the
and
way
Elon
in
Musk.
which the national narrative gets hijacked, I did not see very many people trying to bring an edifying conversation there. It was just outrage on both sides.
Right.
And that in and of itself is disheartening.
That I agree,
where
100%.
I'm looking at it, it's like, okay, you got to pick a side. And for me, this is not a left or right conversation. I don't see it like, yes, the right can hijack it, the left can hijack it. But if we're going to really talk about, okay, at the base of like what's being discussed, like, why can't people just give their actual beliefs in this? Why does it have to be outrage? Why can't it say, well, I'll leave Harrison Butker to his belief systems. Here's what I think about this.
Yeah.
And just leave it at that. Why is it got to be outrage all the time?
Because everything, Jason, that's the world we live in. Everything is a soundbite. Everything's a meme. Everything is ammunition to scream at other people and say, and then the other people get to scream back, and then you get to scream back at them. And so it's a reason for. I'm not saying it's a reason for discordant, not much harmony. I hate it, and I 100% agree with you because I'm listening to this stuff. I'm like, these people are saying things they didn't listen to this. All they did was they heard somebody make a comment
And puppeted it.
and
or
puppeted
whatever.
it. They're just echo chambers, and they're just saying, "Oh yeah, well that's wrong." And then they throw
Let's fire him. Let's get
let's
him out
fire
of here.
him, and they throw memes, and they say things like, you can, Butker can kick his own ass, like that, it's like, what? You don't even know what's going on.
You just stepped right into what I get is not a trap because we believe the same thing. But for me, that is why he needs to know better. That's my personal view. Now, I understand he probably did not expect this to go global. But I think now that we know, like you just said, everything is like that now. The minute you reach a certain degree of celebrity, the minute you have a pulpit in some capacity, I think that has become now wisdom and something that we need to always take into consideration with discernment as Christians when we step into the real world, wherever we find ourselves, and be conscious of, okay, when I articulate myself, how will this be
received? Yeah.
because the times of just being able to say what I think and not having consequences, that's long gone. Now that we have social media, we have everything that we do, and we can gain wisdom from this situation.
Yeah.
And for me, that's one of the things that just becomes so frustrating with when I see celebrities like this do this, where it's like, man, now I got to defend this guy as a Christian. Like, I don't want to have to defend Harrison Becker. I don't know him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know him. I don't care what he's doing in his life. Go do great things, please.
I would have preferred that ceremony happened, and he gave his speech, and they gave him an applause, and I never knew anything about it.
Sure.
That'd be fine with me. The world outside St. Benedictine would have never have known anything about it. That would have been fine. I hear what you're saying, and I try to be, that's one of the things I try to be, and I'm critical of people who I think, man, you're not being very discerning. It's like on our first episode when we were talking about Mark Driscoll and the guys at the men's conference. Like, what are you doing? I think sometimes this is the tension that as believers we fight is there's also this call we see constantly in the Bible about being bold and courageous and speaking out and defending the faith. And all right, so what does that look like? What does boldness look like without being mean? Or can you really be bold without giving your enemies fodder to come back and attack you on? You see what I'm saying? Like
sure.
that, I think there's a weird balance there, and I don't pretend that I know what that is, but I think that's hard to figure that out. And you're right. I think it'd be fair in hindsight. Maybe even Bucker and his wife are sitting around saying, maybe on hindsight I should have turned it notch down a little bit because I didn't know what kind of stink this was going to cause.
Sure.
Or maybe he's like, you know what? I don't really care.
Well, I've seen one interview that he's done, and I don't know if it came from before or after, but where he ultimately says, I don't give a shit.
Well, and that's fine.
Because this is my career. Like, football's a career. If I lose it, so be it. This is my faith. And if that's what he really thinks, good on him.
Yeah.
But, like, for me, that's the rub. And it's, you and I were talking offline a minute ago where, like, that's the rub for me, where a lot of times I get up in my head because I don't want to say something that will overly alienate a certain population. But there are plenty of times when I'm one-on-one with somebody that I can be confident.
Yeah.
And with what you're talking about, okay, what does looking bold? Well, what I constantly go to is, okay, what does Scripture say? What does Jesus' example look like? That most of the time, this man walked around with such a quiet confidence in himself that he was not afraid to pick fights. But when he picked fights, it was sharp and it was direct, and there was no back and forth. It was just, this is what I believe.
But he also did it like to crowds of people.
Totally.
Right? He would say things and people are like, whoa, what the living is this guy saying? Right? And there's a reason why Jesus grew, or in his ministry, he grew big crowds of people. And then as time went on, all those people following him around withered down and got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller because he said things that were uncomfortable to them. And he was direct and to the point. So like,
so why do you think they were uncomfortable to them?
Because it challenged them to evaluate their own lives and to make changes.
About what? Like, what about their lives?
I think probably how they conducted themselves.
Sure.
How they treated other people.
Sure.
And how they view their relationship with God.
There it is. For me, it challenges faith. It challenged what their religion looked like most of the time. And I've made a career over that. Like, that's what I do now, is like, you look at the way Jesus argues with Sadducees and Pharisees, and these are people that were very uncomfortable with him challenging that status quo.
Is there a component that you could argue that Harrison Buckner was doing that with these Catholic students?
Potentially. Yeah. But that then we go to the discernment of the administrators. Why are you bringing them in here? Like, is that a wise thing?
Well, is that what they wanted? Did they want, they're like, hey, we're going to have a commencement speech to challenge people. Let's make sure it's a challenge and it's not just a bunch of fluff. I don't know.
Well, so maybe this is a good time. So my article, quote unquote, that I brought just on this is a response. This is on NPR. We can throw it on there. But it's a response by the St. Benedictine nuns that founded the college. That what they said, Sisters of St. Benedictine of Mount St. Scholastica, that's quite a name, said, instead of promoting...
Wasn't that Whoopi Goldberg's character in Sister
Hey, she was one of the defenders that came out. I heard about this.
Go ahead.
In The View. But so this is what the nun said, that instead of promoting unity in our church, our nation, and the world, his comments seem to have fostered division, they wrote. One of our concerns was the assertion that being a homemaker is the highest calling for a woman. We sisters have dedicated our lives to God and God's people, including the many women whom we have taught and influenced during the past 160 years. These women have made a tremendous difference in the world in their roles as wives and mothers and through their God-given gifts in relationship, scholarship, and their careers. And we were saddened by this experience.
Okay. That's fair. That they're saying, hey, wait a minute, what about us?
Exactly.
We're nuns, and that's a pretty high calling in the Catholic faith. Maybe you should have included that. Hey, some of you careers, some of you moms and wives, some of you might choose to go and be nuns. Maybe that would have been wise.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
But beyond that, like what I think they articulate here is this idea of the whole Christian body of Christ is at the forefront of their minds, which is the forefront of my mind. That's the forefront of what Jesus' mind was. That when he's talking to these Sadducees and these Pharisees, like, no, this isn't about just your temples. This isn't just about your laws that you are, laying down on people. This is about, okay, what does it look like to be the body of Christ? What does it look like to live out faith?
Yeah.
And to me, that's one of the things that I think I guess I'm taking from this controversy, for lack of a better word, is just like, it is so much more important now than ever to be discerning and confident in what we believe and why we believe it. So that, okay, if we do get backlash, just make sure you know why you said what you said.
Yeah.
And don't just shoot off your tongue, and don't just...
And he was, obviously he was speaking from his experience with his own wife and his own family of the choices that she made. So he was addressing that to some way that's probably a big influence on him. And, he's not going to say this publicly, but again, he may be in his own mind like, all of us would do this after we give a speech. But I probably missed a little bit here. I probably could have said that differently. I know that I would. I do it after this podcast, right?
Yes. Oh, you've seen it. You've
we have a much smaller audience.
Yes.
So I'm sure that happens, but publicly, he has to come out, or chooses to come out and say, hey, I don't care what the detractors think. But also, he's talking about the national detractors that are getting after him about certain things. So I don't disagree with you. I just, at the end of the day, I think this thing became this controversy that it never needed to become.
Yeah. And
I don't blame him for that. Because I think, again, he spoke in this setting to these people. They knew what they were getting. He knew it. I don't blame him for that. I sort of blame the culture that we live in, where people will take a little soundbite and they'll tell their friend, Harrison Buckner, blah, 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 blah. And then 17 people take that without ever checking the source, without ever formulating their own opinion on it. They just grab that and they say, yep, what an idiot. And then that gets spread around.
Sure.
Right? We see that all the time. We see that in sports. We see that in politics.
But to me, that's what it boils down to for me. That is the burden that we have to bear as Christians. And I think a lot of times excusing it away as, oh, that's just how it is now, or being frustrated with it or whatever, like, we are called to a higher calling. And to me, like, a lot, as I was chewing on this week, it comes back to what we were talking about last week with the deconstruction conversation, where, man, if you start looking at Jesus' life and the life he's called us to live, it looks very sacrificial. It looks like all these different things. We are not supposed to pursue treasures in this world. We are not supposed to chase riches.
Right.
Like, that's obvious. But, and this thing just came out with the Pope, and, we don't have to talk about all of this.
Do you think, as you were saying that, it goes back to an earlier point you made, like, why is this 28-year-old guy doing this? Is there maybe a piece of our society as a whole, church certainly included in that has lost a bit of a grip on, because we see this in the Bible a lot, of the correlation of age and wisdom? I mean, think about it. Rabbis didn't start practicing as a rabbi until age 30. Jesus didn't start practicing and teaching until he reached age 30.
Yep.
I'm not saying there's anything magic about age 30, but there's this idea of, hey, people need to take the time to learn and season themselves and get a little bit of experience in lives before they go and start shooting their mouths off. But now we give the pulpit to
anybody,
20-year-olds, and say, hey, what do you think? And
sure.
And like, as a guy who's, in my 50s now, I can look at 25-year-old me and, oh, that guy was an idiot.
Totally.
35-year-old me.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious. I mean, what do you think? Like, is there something in this that, because we've lost that, hey, maybe we need to give a little bit of deference, and there's wisdom in years and experience in age that, frankly, a lot of our culture just kind of turns their back on and says, those people don't know anything. Really, the young people are smarter than the old people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I know I guess I didn't really finish my point when I was talking about that like for me, I think beyond that, it's not so much, okay, we're going to give anybody a pulpit. It's more times than not what I see is we'll give people the pulpit if they say what I like them to say. Mm-hmm. That there's a lot of propping up of, hey, this person agrees with my belief, so we're going to prop them up. It's not necessarily, it's irregardless of age. You know, if they've got fame or whatever it is, we like that, so we'll prop it up and we'll share it or we'll do whatever. That discernment around who are we listening to, has gone by the wayside. Like for me, it's something I tell my kids, a lot of my friends, like almost all of my good friends are older than me. And it's been this thing where I've self-assigned myself as high maintenance or whatever, but I really enjoy learning from older people that have experienced life. And I find I'm more of an old soul. I find myself wanting to learn from other people. Mm-hmm. Trusting the wisdom gained by people older than me than by peers of mine, because I look around and I'm like, most of the time I guess I'll just say it, like most of the time I look at them, I'm like, you guys are idiots. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Like, you haven't filtered through life in the same way. And where I get my confidence a lot of times is by gleaning wisdom from older people. And then because of that, whether it be through books that I read or podcasts I listen to or people that I have pouring into me, I've got 12 different mentors that pour into me. It's kind of weird with the whole Jesus and disciples thing, but I've always tried to have about 12 different people speaking from different perspectives into my life. Mm-hmm. That allows me to have confidence to then go and speak assertively or believe something courageously.
Absolutely.
And I think we could all learn from that, where I take this from Harrison Butker. It's not that big of a deal, but sit there and say, don't make the same mistake.
Right.
Please don't do this.
And that would be if I were to sit down and have coffee with Harrison, I'd be like, all right, what did you learn from this experience? So in the future, it can be a better experience, right? Even if it wasn't your fault or whatever, you didn't say anything. Yeah, but because I try to take that in my own life. What can I have learned from this experience that didn't go as well as I anticipated, and how can I apply that in the future?
Sure. Well, and that's so much could be gained from, I think, even an apology. Like, clearly, regardless, like, because this article with the nuns,
I could see how an apology to the nuns would go a long way.
Yeah, because like this, so this is published May 20th. At the bottom it says Harrison and the college have refrained from comment. That was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So maybe they have in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
But like, just to say, like, that wasn't my heart. Like, my heart is just to show my experience and like to encourage you and to know that it's not all just about making riches in this world. Like, there's lots of different routes that we can go
that are valuable and significant and worthwhile.
Absolutely.
And to come back and say, I in no way was I intending to slight the nuns and
yeah, because now, but because of that lack of apology, at least that I've seen, you allow other people then to take that message, and then they are your message bringers.
Yeah, and
to me, that's like the humility that's needed within celebrityism, or however you say that. That is a necessity with Christian celebrities. Mm-hmm. That being willing to say, I've made mistakes, I've done bad things. Like, yes, I'm out there for you all to see, but the more transparent Christians can be, the more fame you have, the more influence you have, it's only for the better. Right. Because we all mess up.
And he set himself up easily for that, because he talks several times about, hey, I'm an amateur speaker. This isn't my thing. I'm a football player first and foremost. You know, like, he set himself up with a little bit of to come back and say, you know, again, I'm an amateur speaker. I haven't done this a lot. I'm still learning. And yeah, that was a mistake on my behalf. Okay, that's fine. I've learned that I should have learned this a long, long time ago. But I've learned in the past couple of years, especially when I get into conflict with somebody, the best thing for me to do is to approach them with a little bit of humility and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I understand that what I did was upsetting to you, or I didn't, something like that,
sure,
right?
Totally.
To open up the conversation to say, I want to learn from this, and I might have a point to say, like, what you said was upsetting to me as well, right? And
sure.
and that, but I think to approach things with affirm the other person. Hey, you're right. You were hurt by this, and that's wrong. That was never my intention. I don't want to. I had to have this conversation with somebody last week, and it went really well because of that. Both of us approached it with a piece of humility to say, you know what? Yep, we got ourselves crossed on this, and it went well. The more people can do that and learn that at an early age, I'm telling you, if you're a young person listening to this, put that into practice.
Yes, please. Yep. Well,
you're never going to, because I think the fear is, well, I look weak if I do that, but that's not, but you don't look weak. I think if you're humble and you apologize for what you can control.
Sure.
You don't need to apologize for other people's opinions or them being offended or something like that, right? You don't need to apologize for that stuff, because sometimes we see that too much where someone comes out, oh, the statement I made was, and it feels very
forced
and just not genuine at all. Just own what you can own.
Yep. And
be good with that.
And to me, I don't know if this is the final point that I'll make, but I just, as I contemplated, okay, what do I just had a conversation with somebody at the gym this morning about it, and it's the first reaction that I have, and maybe we've already made this point, so you can just walk me off of it, but it's just, I don't know what good when it comes to getting our voice out there as Christians. It's really hard for me to see, okay, these statements are being made, obviously to a Christian college, there's Catholic college, Christian people, whatever, that makes sense. But we need to be wise and discerning beyond that when we are delivering messages, I don't see how something like this that would get out, how is that attractive to non-Christians? Like, oh man, this guy's hateful. Like, or this guy's bigoted, or this guy's misogynistic, or whatever it is. It taints the Christian message to non-Christians.
Well, and that, obviously he wasn't talking to those people.
I understand, but to the degree.
Now, I would also say, well, why was this thing recorded and put it on YouTube? Maybe that was a dumb decision.
That's the thing. Like, somehow it got out. But nobody, like, to me, that's what I just cringe at. It's like, man, I don't want to have to defend these other Christians. And I really wish Christians, and I do this myself, put it through a filter of how are people going to perceive me as a Christ follower? Mm-hmm. And always let that be my first.
Maybe that's why Israel pulled the cameras. Like,
full circle. Just take note of it.
No,
please.
but I hear what you're saying. Because then it creates this. It creates this angst. I felt it. You felt it. I know my wife felt it. Like, great. Now we got to wade into this. I mean, we're spending an entire podcast on this thing, right?
Yeah.
Now we got to wade into this thing. Why do we have to feel like and to some degree, maybe we shouldn't feel like we have to defend? I don't know. But then do we have an obligation to, when someone espouses some really good positive things, because a lot of what he said, that's really good. That's really positive.
Sure.
And if those are the things people are coming after him about, then I want to say, whoa, time out.
Sure.
Well,
and that the story this morning, like at the gym, the person that came up to me, he came up, he's like, hey, how's your guy Harrison Butker? Because he knows I'm a Christian. Mm-hmm. He wanted to know what I thought of him as a Christian acting out, because he's not a Christian.
Yeah.
He's somebody that, and so it was just, I had to distance myself from him. Because I literally just said, like, that's bad move.
But I think that guy's beef with Harrison Butker is not a valid beef, because he's got a beef with the girls and the women and that kind of stuff.
Totally.
I think the only beef I see that could be out there is maybe Butker with some stuff with the Catholic Church or with the nuns or something, which if someone came to me and said, well, what do you think about that? I would say, I don't have a strong opinion about that, because I'm not a nun and I'm not in the Catholic Church, so I don't really,
Sure.
So I'm not gonna have a big. I don't have. In no way am I gonna defend him on those points.
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't know if he's right or wrong on those points. Now, I mean, other than saying, well, maybe he misstepped by not including nuns in the conversation.
Sure. Well,
but some of his other criticisms of the Catholic Church, I don't know.
Well, and what I told my buddy, I was just like, yep, that's not how I would have done it. Like, I've had the opportunity to go back to my college a couple times and talk. It's not like I know what filter I put myself through when I went and did that. And so that's what I talked. I just talked about my experience. And I was just like, it's foolhardy what he did, is the way I put it. Like, don't categorize me with them.
So I'm curious, go back to something we talked about. Do you think, because I said that I believe this is true, do you think that society, secular society, and even encroaching in the church, has given a message to girls and women over the last couple of generations of your worth is, you're not really worth or valued unless you have a job or a career outside the home?
I would say yes, absolutely. I think there has been messages hijacked from both sides, elevating the role of women, and it's been, depending on the conversation, whether it be through the Me Too, whether it be through trying to, influence and have women in leadership and women in, even career positions and pastors at churches. Like, that's a whole other conversation,
right? That
it has changed the narrative. Because to me, I think at the core, like, if we go back to like biblical womanhood and manhood and what that looks like, at the core, the most important thing is that Christ is realized within the home. And then regardless of what we do, it's about edifying the church and bringing glory to God and expanding that. It has nothing to do with our careers. It has nothing to do, but man has an equal responsibility in the house, as does women. Like, and so to me, that's the minute it changes from that very basic foundational message,
right,
it's hijacked.
Well, and you see it on both sides over the years. I mean, there's certainly a contingent in the very conservative circles out there that say that a woman ought not go and have a career, right?
Sure.
Her only place is to be at the home,
which is the truly Catholic view, I believe,
to some degree, probably.
Yeah.
But and obviously I disagree with that, but that's not the prevailing message. And then there's the other side that sees, and this is really, I've read this before. This is actually one of the reasons why abortion proponents, one of their arguments is motherhood can become a drag and keep you from your true highest calling of your career, whatever that may be.
Definitely seen that messaging.
Right? So there's these two polar opposites on this thing. Probably it's fair to say that the second one has gotten a little bit more attention or is more filtered through than the former.
Sure.
You don't find a lot of people who are like, no. Now, Mark Driscoll made that point back with Mars Hill. He made a huge point that women need to be at home and not seeking careers. That pops out, and that's more conservative or more controversial. So we're in
conservative.
But I think you and I are
we are in agreement.
So we're in agreement there. So how would you? I'm curious. How would you? If you got a group of 22-year-old women and they're looking at their lives ahead of them, what would you say something to them, or how do you feel like you could address to them, or maybe you just say I don't have any skin in the game, I don't know, to help them feel like, hey, your career and motherhood can both coexist.
Or, you're going to give it to me,
or you can choose one or the other, or the whole point is just to glorify Jesus in your life.
Sure.
How would you address it?
All right, I got 9 more years than Harrison Butker, so. What I've learned, you guys are the superstars. That from all the experience that I've had working in communities, working in neighborhoods, down in the jungle, around the world, that women run the world. I truly believe that. You see that with Jesus, Mary, Martha. They're the ones holding down the fort, bringing steady. Regardless of what you do, just know that you are champions. You run the world. And you need to find men that see you like that if you want to marry. But don't let anybody stop you from doing what God's calling you to do. Now, if that's in the home, wonderful. If that's in a career, changing the world, doing something in business, wonderful. But the most important.
I mean, you're not talking to that audience, but yeah.
But no, including being like no matter what, just the most important thing first and foremost is your relationship with God. Mm-hmm. That learning that intimate voice between you and God. That's the most important thing, because the minute you understand that and you feel his direction through the Spirit, nothing can stop you. I truly believe that. And it's a matter of then finding people to bring alongside of you to allow you to be empowered and do that to the greatest of your ability. Yeah. To flourish. And no man should ever stop that, which is cultural. That's a big problem. No man should get in the way of that. And that, I think, is why I got so frustrated. Like, it's just so direct the way Harrison came in. And it's not this uplifting, empowering, launching.
I like what you just said. I think
and so then from there, like go on and, I would probably give it examples and whatever it is, go do it to the best of your ability. And that's what I think.
Discern God's will and follow that.
And find people to empower you along the way to make you that much more effective.
And that path is going to look very different for everyone in this room, and that's fine.
Yes.
Don't let culture tell you there's a prescribed journey for you.
Amen. Yes.
Good. Is that a good place to stop?
I think that's good as anything. We've been rambling for a while.
Well, but hopefully people get something out of this, and it reminds all of us, me included, sometimes we need to think twice before we speak.
Sure. And if you like this, please like, subscribe, review, share, follow, do all the nice things for us. We got a video, so we're going to put this on YouTube so you can share this. And we got some ideas coming up that maybe we'll do some short little anecdotes and have some mini pods.
Yeah.
But just grateful for everybody that's listening. And blessings.
Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Adios.
See ya.